Good morning, good afternoon, good evening,
Good day.
good day.
Good day.
What is happening with the world? I have no idea what to do with my brain because the world has gone spinning. Like it's making me spin and it's sorry, I'm just gonna mental health drop on you right now
Yep.
because like recently the news has just gone into United States news for me.
Mm-hmm.
And me being in the UK, it has been great not listening to the US news. But now I am flooded with the US news about what they're doing, what Elon's doing, what Trump is doing, what the tariffs are happening.
Mhm.
Mommy and daddy are fighting. Mommy and daddy meaning US and China are fighting. Like, what is happening?
Everyone's fighting.
Everyone's fighting. Oh no. Yeah, I'm just feeling a little bit, bombarded with a lot of these things, and I just don't know how to comprehend or I don't know, like I think just sometimes one of the ways for me to not engage in any of these is just to not read any news and not consume any of the news podcasts that I used to listen. So, and it's kind of helping a little bit, I'm feeling, because, there's nothing I can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm over here, they're over there. They're having a long distance fight, like over my atmosphere. So, okay, rant done.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So many things is happening, right? As you mentioned, regarding Elon Musk's department, the Doge, like to cutting the budgets and everything, and also the tariffs and also the fights. Actually, I'm just curious,
Yeah.
like when you absorb the information, when you receive the information, do you currently have a perspective from UK? Because I definitely see a lot of perspectives or news from China's side naturally. So it's like very interesting for me to have this comparison from those two perspectives. So I wonder, like, do you have like similar situations, or it's more like the US news?
I don't know if I have a correct answer for this because a lot of my content is from the States. So
Mm-hmm.
the podcast and like the news outlets and Apple Podcasts and like Apple News always come from the States, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it's quite similar to like when I'm in Canada to absorb this.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel everybody in the UK, they're just like, what the fuck is wrong with America? I like I feel the same way and like I can't defend them because I'm Canadian and I'm very happy to be Canadian at this moment and all I can say is mommy and daddy are fighting
Mm-hmm.
and the Canadian people are also being dragged into this.
Yeah.
Mexicans are also dragged into this. Heck, the whole world is being dragged into this.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, wait, hold on. We're not trying to like become a news podcast or whatever, but this is just kind of like been in our minds for a little bit. But yeah, should we start? Should we just start?
Yeah, let's start.
So welcome to Pondering Pandas, a podcast where we ponder about the confusing modern world and try to make sense of it all. We are your host. My name is
My
Jayden.
name's Ryan.
Hello, Ryan.
Hello,
So,
Jayden.
welcome to the start of this podcast. As you can probably tell in the prelude, we're going to talk about this confusing, times. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about tariffs and what is happening. I'm not very
Mm-hmm.
technical and very economical or financial literate type of person,
I'm
I
not
would
as well,
say.
so
No, I would think you are much more than me, but I'm just here to share my little peasant citizen opinions to
okay.
display my emotions, and that's it.
Jaden's being humble, but yeah, share share me your thoughts, please.
Well, I did. It's just mind boggling. And there's nothing I can do about it. I'm on this part of the world, and everybody that I've seen online, especially some of the comments and the
Mm-hmm.
memes that I've seen, they're ridiculous, okay? They're so funny at the same time. It's so like, wow, something might happen in the future and we just don't know what. And this trade war that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of wild. And I think I am more towards about life is already getting really expensive. And if these tariffs are happening, I just don't know what is going to happen in the next couple of years. We're barely through the first year
Yeah.
of after the election. Like we have we have more of this.
Barely first quarter.
Yeah. So all this tariff talk, let's just, pull it back a little bit. And I,
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of want to, an average citizen, like, what does that mean? What does tariffs mean for us?
Yeah.
Yeah, please educate me. Educate me.
I'm definitely not an economist, but from like high level, I do believe the tariff is going to increase the fee that we are paying for the imported goods and items from the foreign
Mm.
countries. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
China is a big manufacturer of all the, toys or the small items you see in everyday life. So I already see some news that the toys price is skyrocketing and also people are paying more because now I think the China's tariffs and the US tariff are ridiculous now. I think after several rounds of they bidding up together and just like say, I want to like add more, I want to retaliate. And now it's reaches to like over 100% for both parties. That's the current situation. So basically, the tariff is the people will be paying more for the everyday items, which will drive up the inflations, which will be more unsustainable for people because their paycheck will not be raising with the same amount of the money they're earning. I assume like the life can be getting more challenging over time if
Mm-hmm.
the situation is not changing or if the tariff is not loosened.
Okay, so I don't know who is going to be listening to this episode, but let's just be completely clear that there's just been so many different sides on social media that some people in America think that these
Mm-hmm.
tariffs, if there's 100% on the tariff being put on to Chinese products,
Mm-hmm.
then some people think that the Chinese will pay for it. Some people think that the consumers, the everyday people who buy things at retail stores, will pay for it. Some people think the business themselves would take it. Some people think the manufacturers are going to absorb it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, there's so many different ways to go about this, right?
Yeah.
And you said toys, and I'm thinking more like bigger things. Like
Yeah, of
there's
course.
so many things that is made in China, and to be honest, there's like clothing, fashion, bags, and the leather that comes from China, the manufacturing that comes from China, the
Mm-hmm.
Chanels, the Birkins, the the Teslas, hello,
Yeah.
and the iPhones. Yeah, it was designed in, California or in France, but most of the products are actually manufactured in China. So like all of these things are going to increase in prices,
Mm-hmm.
and there is just a lot to take in, you know?
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. So I do see now they're trying to have this relief of the tariff for those like iPhone or those chips, the high end tech. But I don't know how this will last and how things are changing because it's very dynamic situation and I just feel like people don't know what to expect at this moment. I definitely have a fatigue on the news. I feel like yeah, just whatever happens
Thank you.
happens and to because if you see the stock market, right? How it's being like influenced by those news and how up and down during this period, you can see people's emotions. You can see people are feared, people don't know where to go, and people have this worries regarding if this is going to be end of the world.
It might.
So yeah, so that's my thinking. I was like, yeah, just let's see how it goes. But now we have a break on the high tech items like the chips, like those items, which is good. And it
Yeah.
has a pause. The US have a
Mm-hmm.
pause on all the other countries, excluding China, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
But after
Yeah.
90 days, what will happen, right? And after maybe half a year, what may happen? It would be very interesting for us to dig deeper to discuss regarding what's his intention and why he's doing those things. But I think on the
Wait,
surface,
what do you mean by he? He? Who's he?
uh, our dear new president of the US,
Oh, I see. Okay.
yeah, like why he's doing all of this and what's his intention and what's his interest.
Time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah, I think on the surface now, it's a total chaos. But I do have faith. I do have faith. I don't think that's a long term game. I don't think that's sustainable. We will see.
Exactly. We shall see. Because I don't know, there are people who think like there is this magic plan that we're gonna crash the stock market and then we're going to reinflate our some sort of like I don't really understand the economics of it, but
Mm-hmm.
essentially is to crash stock market, somehow bring the currency to a stronger position around the world and XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many different types of viewpoints that I've seen online that I'm like, oh, is it? Like, I don't know if I can truly believe that without understanding it and educating it myself. Because I don't know, as much as I want to educate myself about this,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know like how much of it is correct. You know what I mean? Like all of these theories, can be true, but there's so many different factors that's happening in the world that may not be taken into consideration. And they're like, oh, history is repeating itself, the XYZ. Well, guess what? History in like way back then, China and other countries weren't as quote unquote strong as being a economic participant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe some of these theories would be correct if a lot of these layers and a lot of these factors were in place back then. But now we have people that have different options to go to. They're like, we don't need to sell it to you guys. We don't need to have you be our top customers. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, like, I think the situation is really, really I don't know. I just can't help but laugh. I'm just like there's nothing I can do. Like I don't want to be upset about this, and the only thing I can possibly do is just laugh and move on with my day. And it's so funny because, our president thinks that we're going to have a lot of the manufacturing in America coming back to America and stuff. And I'm like, well, maybe these manufacturing factories is going to take time to number one to be
Mm-hmm.
built,
Mm-hmm.
and then who the hell is going to work in these factories? And some people are thinking
Maybe
like
AI
these
robots.
teenagers or AI robots. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, but I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. And a lot of these infrastructures are not in place. And I don't know if you also saw it online. The only thing that I can consume right now is social media making memes about Americans working in factories, and it's really funny because, oh my gosh, like I'm not gonna describe what they look like, and if you're really interested, like go look at it yourself, but it makes no sense.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I do feel like that this is going to be a more like short term attack instead of like a long term plan. It's definitely a lot of the political leverages you can bring from the tariffs. Because if you look really deep onto like what's the power a US president can have, it has more freedom on the foreign policies and foreign like measures compared to what he has in there internally. So I think it's pretty smart if we think about from like political point of view, or thinking as him of a politician who wants to get more leverage. It's pretty smart that he utilized the tariff to force people into negotiation and force countries to renegotiate. And since his foundation, remember like why he was elected in the first place, at least on the surface, that he's saying, oh, like people are suffering, the inflation is rocket high, and we have so many people are not making money, they're losing their job to China and all different countries. So essentially, after he is elected, he need to give some responses to those situations. Tariff would be a good response from the political point of view, because he's showing people that he's forcing those countries to back to the table. And you can already see many countries are saying some good things about him. Countries are like saying they're going to invest in the US, they're going to renegotiate the deals. So yeah, on the surface, it's really good for him for political response through the tariff, I would say. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think there's just like something is happening in a different direction that we're not necessarily paying attention to. So they're like, I don't know if this is true, but like this could be a distraction tactic. Like,
yeah, could
something
be.
else bigger is happening in the background. So then like other people don't need to pay attention to. So then they can like, get through things. But one of the things that I think that it's kind of affecting a lot is more than just goods, right? And I think more than just stocks, if these things kind of continue and people's emotions are kind of being played around and it's really tied into like the money aspect of it. So there are other sectors in the world, like the housing market is kind of gonna go into like a terminal stop, or it's gonna go wild, and I don't know, it might collapse too, right? And maybe not just the US market, it could happen in Canada or other parts of the world too, because like these materials and metals, that's gonna affect other parts of the world as well. And I don't know, feel like there's this, okay, I low key am very proud that China is able to stand up to themselves and be like, no, I don't want to be bullied, and I want to be able to have my position in the world and have my leverage as well. And I don't want to just sit there like a fucking dog and be told by Americans to do whatever the fuck I want to do. Okay, that's one. I'm happy that China's able to do that, right? So the other part is like, I'm also terrified if this might result in like a switch of power in the global order. And it's kind of like choosing your president or prime minister and how none of them are great options. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's it's definitely terrifying.
And I'm not saying like one is better than the other. I'm not saying the States is doing a great job, but I don't know. There is this aspect of, I guess, laws are kind of being followed in America versus some other countries. It's like, I'll just do whatever the fuck I want, you know?
Yeah. I can totally relate to that, because I do feel that China and the US, they're playing a different game. Because back to the history, like as you mentioned, you say like we're learning from the history lessons and stuff like this, right? And usually in the history, there's a famous series say like the number one power and the second power always need to fight. And this is where like the power shift or the power dynamic will change. When you look back to the history, that would be how the UK become the superpower, become this empire of the sun never sets, and then it passes to the America after the independent war and the World War II as well. So there's always this Siri or the people like whispering in the back and saying like, yeah, we have to beat them. We have to beat them in able to become the superpower in the world. And we want to like defeat them. So every time when people
Mm.
have those war series or war whispers, there's always another voice come in and say, it's highly unlikely it will happen because those two countries, the China and the US, are so codependent on each other on the trades and on the economic parts. That was
Yeah.
before the first trade war in 2018. Like
Yeah.
we mentioned a lot of times in our podcast, the best like 30 years or the 40 years of the economic growth in China, where it's
Yeah.
everything's getting better. And naturally, we have stronger ties with America and the international society. We're just getting clocked into the system to be part of this international order.
Mm-hmm.
So now the worries after the first trade war and after this tariff, they both are bidding up the tariffs and to say, we no longer need your product. And we're trying to find alternative approaches for our productions and for our consumptions. So it's a big
Yeah.
fear behind this is that if they will eventually use this opportunity to detach economically. And it
Yeah.
definitely like fueled this fear of war of those two countries. Like if they will go to the war in the future, they will have less
Mm.
things to worry because they will say, okay, I'm already economically independent. I don't have to worry about
Mm-hmm.
your part of after having the war, my economy will naturally collapse. But of course, there's no winner in the war, but there was
No.
one layer less items or factors they will worry about.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing, I'm not sure if you aware, I do believe both countries are moving more towards like a nationalism rim. So basically they're trying to catering to their anger from the people and to say, okay, I'm the strong man here. I'm going to lead you. I'm going to give you a country that you're proud of. I think both countries are moving
Mm-hmm.
to that direction. And
Yeah.
usually a nationalism culture or nationalism like country, the number one priority is they need a common enemy or they need an enemy for the country. So people
Yeah.
can channel their hate and to become the
Mm-hmm.
internal solidarity.
Yeah.
So go back to the history, you can actually see a lot of the examples. You can see like
Yeah.
the German, in the World War II, how they become such a
Mm-hmm.
machine of invasion and such a
Yes.
horror. And yeah, just name it. Like you can see how like countries are being united with this external like enemy. So I think this
Mm-hmm.
this tariff, why they're bidding up the tariffs to such a high level at the moment, part of it is like they cannot afford to back down.
Mm-hmm.
If they back down in this game, they will show the weakness to their enemy. They will show a bad example to their people. So it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely not good for the ruling and for the strongman politics to continue. So that's why I have the worries that these measures will further deepen the gaps between those two countries and it will strengthen their own authority and control and it will further drive the people apart, which is something I'm not happy to see.
There is an element that is kind of missing from the histories, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
currently, I understand this whole entire theory of nationalism, what you're explaining right now, and it totally makes sense. And I think obviously people need to be able to stand up for their own country and they need to be able to find a common enemy to move forward with whatever policies and tactics they want to and justify the tactics that they're going to employ, right?
Yeah.
But there is an element of the internet currently that this is just my insight, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's this,
Go ahead.
social media in international waters of the States and China,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's TikTok or Red Note, and, how people are exchanging information. I feel that people aren't necessarily seeing it that way and they might have difference of opinion. They're like, actually, it's not really about the citizens that's really doing these fights. It's just, Big Mommy and Big Daddy are fighting,
Yeah,
meaning
yeah.
the governments are fighting and not necessarily the citizens. And the response of some of these tariffs that's been happening, it's really funny because on TikTok recently, there's been like manufacturing posts that got exploded in terms of like, oh, do you buy from Nike in the States? Here, we manufacture clothes for Nike for, $5 per shoe. And how much are you paying? 200 and something dollars in the States. And it's
Yeah, that's true
wild.
though. Yeah.
Wild. And then
Uh-huh.
there's people responding to these manufacturing posts, and they're like, you know what, fuck you, like XYZ, we can just buy directly from the manufacturing and like
Mm-hmm.
do this and do that. Yeah, so there's this element of the internet that's able to allow us to cross communicate these things in a very different way that history has not been able to have, because
Mm-hmm.
previously the um the internet didn't really exist, right? Because each country is able to produce their own media and produce their own propaganda and produce their own type of communication to their own citizens. So they're just going to be able to take in whatever information that's been given to them.
Yeah, yeah.
But now it's a completely different ball game. But I don't know how successful it is through these type of mediums, because there's a little bit of critical thinking in the world, and there's a little bit of
A little bit for sure.
differences, just a little bit, and then just a little bit of differences in opinions. And then we recognize people like me, the average Joe, be like, okay, only the government is really, really annoyed about this. But like the
Mm-hmm.
citizens are great, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese are great, the Canadians are great, some of the Americans are great. But, like mommy and daddy just needs to like sit in a room and like hash this out, and maybe there's a bigger issues to fry, not just tariffs. There are
Mm-hmm.
other emerging technologies that's happening around the world. I don't know, I just think like, why can't we all just be friends? But here we are.
I think we had some episodes before. We're talking about the NPD and how how like essentially like NPD people are self-serving. So I do believe now we have this chance, as you mentioned, to break the wheels, to break the cycle of the history, to be like, we want to have this chance to break this pattern of we always need to fight between countries and to have a clear winner, and we have to have someone to control the whole world. And remember, I think under the peaceful surface of the work order, the word more peaceful now is the nuclear weapons. Is that how they use the nuclear
Oh god.
weapons to like, make sure
Yeah.
each other are behaving well? So I think that's
Hmm.
that's the foundation of the work order now. I think that's where the fear coming from, because people are relying
Hmm.
on the forces to make sure the peace is possible.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be too naive to say, okay, we want to get rid of all of this like overnight, and this is something we don't want, because I respect human nature. I do believe that people want to make sure they are safe and they have the way to protect themselves. But I do want to highlight
Hmm.
that now we are in the era of AI. We are on the era of decentralization.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, this is like another thing that's really driving me up the wall in my brain, because I've been consuming a lot of these things too,
Yeah.
and I'm a little worried at the same time, but at the same time, I want to be hopeful. Anyways, maybe we can save this on a different topic, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
on a side of AI where I hope that we're able to coexist and help each other
Mm-hmm.
to advance life, more particularly human life, because technically, if, whether or not you believe AI has conscience or believe AI has thoughts or whatever, this is a technology that we don't necessarily understand yet. And even if we do understand, I don't know how much we quote unquote truly understand. Like I just want to be hopeful, and my stance is why can't we all just work together and just advance both of our lives, more human life, I guess, because
Hmm.
technically AI doesn't really need us if it's to a point where they're able to self reproduce, self code,
Uh-huh.
self do whatever it is that they want, right? So, yeah, that is my gist.
Exactly. So I'm thinking either the AI is going to bring us all the helps and to restore the social orders, as we just mentioned, regarding like helping us and to understand that we don't have to fight, we can just hug each other and we can utilize this new capability or productivity for the future, advances and stuff like this. Another possibility is AI become the common enemy for all human beings. So we kind of have another reason to get united together and as a species and to say like, yeah, we finally have a common enemy. That's the reason why low key that sometimes I fantasy about like how this work order will be shifted and how we will have a different dynamics. It's maybe one day we have the aliens coming to us and we suddenly realize, okay, so now we have the aliens. So maybe we human beings or we earthers are like one group finally.
I know. I think like that's what needs to happen. I feel like we just need like a space war for us to all unite. You know what I mean? Like we just need we just need Star Wars to happen, and then world peace might happen. I don't know. But like yeah, this entity, like this third entity, like I have thought about that. I was like, you know what? I feel like for everybody to reunite, we just need a different enemy, and it could be AI, and it could be like a different species outside it within space. And I hope that it's not AI. I don't want to talk about AI because I really want this to be like a thing about just tariffs, but I can't remove myself from it because it's so within it, because it's part of the whole entire system, right? And I just think we just need to figure out, mommy and daddy needs to figure it out. Okay?
Mhm.
Mommy and daddy just needs to figure it out.
Yeah. So I wonder, like, so far, do you see some like real life impacts on the tariff already, or it's more like on the emotion side at the moment?
For me, it's definitely emotions. I mean, I just think everything has already been really expensive already.
Mm-hmm.
And since I'm in the UK, I don't necessarily see these tariffs. Or maybe I just haven't been paying attention to the things yet. Like, or maybe when iPhone comes out and the tariff is like 100%, and then I'm like, wow, the iPhone is $4,000. And then I'm like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that would definitely affect it. Or like, the Google Pixel has become an extra, I don't know, $5,000 just for this, and that it doesn't come with headphones, it doesn't come with the charger, it doesn't come with anything. Or yeah, it just doesn't make sense in those terms, right? And yeah, I don't know what to tell you. For me right now, it's very emotional. Is it very different
Mm,
where you are right now, or
yeah, I don't see some real life examples already yet.
yet?
So, but we do see the stock market. It's crushing
Yeah.
a little bit, and it's definitely brings so many emotional stress to people who have the investments. So,
Mm-hmm.
for like a brief breakdown, I think during the last several months, some major companies like Apple was down like 36%.
Yeah.
Nvidia was down like 37, Tesla was down like 53, and Bitcoin was down like more than 30% or so. So it's
Yeah.
crazy. And on the contrast, you see the gold was up 15%. it's,
Yeah.
it's like people are rushing to buy the gold and to save their assets, and which is making sense. I feel like it's such a emotional stress for many people, and I credit myself to be a long-term investor, but with the speed of crushing, I definitely feel more pressure. I just doubt myself regarding if this is a long term to play. And I do see a lot of friends around me starting to panic as well. And this fear of another financial crisis.
Yeah, I just think it's probably a correct way of thinking that you're like, oh my gosh, things are gonna crash, XYZ. However, I think also the teachings of old methods is also correct, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
sure, things is gonna crash, things are gonna reset. This is part of the norm of the stock market and part of the financial sector. And technically, if you don't sell, you're not going to lose.
Yeah.
Unless, the company actually like closes and like see you later, right? But yeah, it's true. But like, if you feel like you need to sell and you need to get out, do what you should have to do. Just don't act on emotions. And if it's healthier, this is my opinion. If it's healthier for you to get out of the market, so then your brain isn't spending so much energy is like, should I sell? Should I not sell? Should I sell? Should I not sell? Like, this is tiring. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, if it helps you to just get out, then get out. And if you have made a decision, be like, you know what? My strategy is 20 years, then
Mm-hmm.
just leave the goddamn thing and just continue with your investing strategy. And sure, when you want to maybe invest a little bit less, right now, or maybe you should be investing a lot more because the market is down, right? Like, this is how some people will make money. They want the markets to be down so
Mm-hmm.
then they can sell at high. So maybe this is an opportunity for you to get into the market. I mean, I don't know. It depends on what team you're on. Either you're a bull or you're a bear. So yeah, I mean, I think everybody wants to make money at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it just depends on how you want to react to the market, I guess.
Yeah. So currently, I think my favorite economic for the investment is actually the behavioral economics, which is basically focusing on the mentality and the mental states of the investors
Mm-hmm.
instead of like the real
Mm.
like economic situations, because it's like an amplifier. Every stock market movement or the financial market crash is more like fueled by emotions in the short term. So you have a bigger
Yeah.
swings compared to that used to be. This is where like behavioral economics comes in, and to say, hey, people in those panic modes, they tend to have more irrational behaviors. And people have this loss aversion, which is if you make 10% of the gain, you're fine. But if you have 10% of the loss, you feel much stronger emotionally. That's human nature for us
Yeah.
to care more about the loss we have, which is why we see like those crashes are happening so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I still want to believe the market is long term. But I think those situations is increasing people's doubts because they can see those short-term crashes can be triggered by one person.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Like a person can say something and my stock currently crashes. And imagine some people who are already like retiring and just being
Yeah.
like crushed, and they may not have like,
They don't have another 10 years to play in this game. They need to,
yeah.
get in or get out. It's just, some people just don't have that luxury anymore.
Yeah. So anything else you feel emotional from this process?
It's kind of tiring and fatiguing, and there are potential solutions that's happening that I'm kind of employing in my daily life, that if anybody is listening who might feel this way, and if these techniques might work for you, maybe you can try them out. You guys can think about turning off the news, not listening to the news a little bit, because at the end of the day, you're going to come across it one way or another, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're on social media, whether you're actively listening to the news or news podcasts, you're going to listen to like relatively the same content.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're just going to cut out some of the sources, you're like, okay, this week I'm not going to listen to news podcasts, but those Apple News that you guys randomly get on your phone, you're gonna have a glance on them and you're like, okay, this is still happening. But like, you're not actually like consuming it. And maybe that might help. Maybe that might not help. Who knows? So
Hmm.
maybe go look at good news. What are something that's good happening around the world instead of all these negative things that are happening in the news? And trust me, you can find them if you really want to. And
Wow,
it
that's really
really
positive.
triggers it really triggers a different response in the brain a little bit. And unfortunately, it takes like 10 pieces of good things to happen for you to manage like one negative thing.
Hmm.
But, it just takes practice, and just not consuming it, I think, is one of the really good ways of not doing that. And just do your own thing. Go to work, get your fitness in check, and those type of things is kind of like how I'm dealing with it.
Hmm. Also, I'm not sure if that's proper. I really want to share my idea regarding the people who believe the tariffs will bring like justice and bring like the job back to the US manufacturing,
Mm,
as we discussed.
okay.
I don't think that's realistic. I don't think that's with the wages, with like the
Wong.
cost,
Why not? Tell me. Why not?
I simply don't believe that if everything is manufactured in the US for the low tech goods, like the shoes, like the toys, it will still have the competitive prices.
You won't, because
Yeah.
because because we have human rights here. We have minimum wage of like, I don't know, 17 to $20, depends on which place you're in, right?
Yeah.
And these things, like, are you able to work 16 hours and not see your family? My
Yeah.
cousins could do it, but I don't think Americas can. Like.
I think we mentioned a little bit previously regarding how in the past 10 or 20 years, I don't know, there's a period of time where the manufacturer of the iPhone, the factories,
Hmm.
you have all the people
Yeah.
are jumping off the roof. They are like
Yeah.
killing themselves because all the pressures and all the workloads they are facing. Yeah, I don't think it will happen in the US, but also I don't think it will be competitive in the price.
No, I think it's going to be more expensive. Like, the math does not math,
Yeah.
right? In
Yeah.
America, like, you have to put all these investments into the manufacturing. You need to have these human labors.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's also a little bit too early for physical AI to do these things right now.
Hmm.
And there has to be a human component to it. And that is your only option, right? You want to change laws to child labors? Sure, go for it. But no, I'm serious. But like, America has been sitting on your couch and watching TV and being really comfortable for the past 20, 30, 40 years.
Hmm.
So for you guys to be actually doing manual labor in manufacturing in factories, like, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It does exist in a very small percentage, but like,
Hmm.
it's not the norm. You guys belong in offices, being comfy in an office and doing things like that. This is not the country in the States to be producing things like that. You guys would be advancing technology through other means. But like, anyways, that is just my opinion, but I could be wrong. Sure.
We could all be wrong, don't worry. I guess the reason why I'm mentioning all of this is that I want to highlight that there's no winner on the tariffs, at least from my
Yeah.
beliefs.
Yeah.
I'm still this old school person that influenced by the traditional economic, ideas that collaboration and also globalization is the key to help everyone benefiting in the end. And I
Mhm.
because I'm trying to stand or I'm trying to speak for everyone in the world and as a one
Mhm.
species, as one group, instead of like
Yeah.
trying to like divide people into different groups and to say one group will be benefiting over the other. I think that's fine if the politicians thinking that way and they are gaining their own interests through that process. But for the people actually involved, I don't think we should be too ideal in the situations.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I just got really like emotional there. Like, I don't know. It just got really like really fiery, and I'm just like, "Oh my God, it just doesn't make sense."
Yeah.
Because even just like as an immigrant, you didn't come to this foreign land and I'm talking about in North America, a lot of people didn't go to want to go work in factories. People want to go there for a quote unquote better life, and whatever that means.
Yeah.
You know, have a business, have their kids to have a degree so then they can have better jobs and work in the offices. Doesn't matter what sector, like those things, right? Like they don't want you to have work 20 hours and get paid pennies.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what to say. Like that's just the reality of it. I don't know.
Yeah. Eventually, I hope this cycle can be break. I just hate nationalism so much. I know it's anti like human nature and it's anti people's idea because we want to be loyal to our country, we want to be patriotic, we want to be loving the people and supporting the people around us, which is fine. But I think that the idea of nationalism is that people are being utilized to achieve the goals, but essentially that may not be benefiting themselves. Because if you are being dragged into this mentality to be like, yeah, we want to be united as a country, we want to be led by a strong man, you're essentially trusting a savior will come up and to save all your problem for you. I don't believe in saviors. If you read through the whole history, every strong man or every savior comes up always bring either disappointments or disasters in the end.
No. I mean, like, there's always a price to pay either with lives or, like, you know, both sides is going to lose, even if one does become a victory of somehow, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I think a lot of people do recognize that war is not okay. um, I don't know if mommy and daddy agrees, but the average everyday people might think war is not great.
I
I'm
hope
not in
so.
this
I
industry,
hope so.
so we need to think about how to manage the world a little bit better. But who am I to say? I'm not the president. I'm just some dude. I'm just some panda on a little podcast
We're just random
expressing
people.
my views. Exactly. How are you feeling?
I feel like that's our honest opinions, and I'm good.
Okay. Well, if you have been tuning in until here, thank you so much for tuning in to Pondering Pandaz. We can be found on all social platforms, either Pondering Pandas with a Z or ponderingpandas.pod across social platforms that you can find us. Please share it with your friends, give us a comment, 5-star review if you could. This would really help us grow. We really appreciate you pondering with us today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.